Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second offering of our Infinite Campus LMS webinar. There will be one more this afternoon at 3 o'clock, so share that invite for anyone that might not have been able to make it to the one last week or the one this morning. But we want to thank you so much for being here with us today. We know a lot of you are in the middle of contract negotiations, so we're hopeful that you will get all of your questions answered today. These sessions were based off of the feedback from the form that was shared out. So thank you, those of you that filled out that feedback survey, because this session was personalized to you guys based off of the questions that you asked in that survey. Just a quick reminder, we are recording and we will be sending out a recording after the two sessions today to everyone. So just know that you will get a recording of this to be able to access later. And again, we thank you so much for being with us. Any questions that you have, please use the chat so that they can make sure to get those questions answered as well. But we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to turn it over to Stephen.
Perfect. Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Hallman, and I am one of the business consultants here at Infinite Campus. And so myself and one other individual, which I'll introduce in just a minute, are going to be taking us through the LMS functionality inside Infinite Campus. So I'll just do quick introductions on our side. There's just a couple folks that I want to introduce. So again, I'm Stephen. I'm going to be leading the conversation this morning, but alongside me is Kathy Frederick. Kathy is a product manager who oversees teaching and learning. So everything under the umbrella of learning management functionality falls to Kathy. And so she has some exciting things to share as far as functionality that is being released in the very, very short term. And so I'll turn it over to her in just a little bit. She'll talk about that. And then also on the Infinite Campus side is one of our training specialists who will be working with many of the PSUs. Her name is Katie Cleary. She just had another conflict, so she'll be joining us very shortly. So between Kathy and Katie, they will be monitoring the chat. So as I'm demonstrating, talking about the feature functionality inside Infinite Campus, certainly there are going to be questions about things that you are seeing or things that you might not be seeing. So please use that chat. I will take pauses at the appropriate times, and I will address any of those questions that you have before moving forward. With that, I'm going to go ahead. I will share my screen. And as I share my screen, there's going to be kind of two different views that we're going to be focused on today. So from an LMS perspective, the teacher side or the curriculum side is equally as important as the student or the parent-facing side. So we're going to bounce back and forth between the functionality that exists for PSU staff as well as for the consumers of that curriculum information. So I will go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here. And welcome to Infinite Campus if you have never seen our software before. So this is our product, and this page that you're looking at right here, I'll call this our teaching center. And so this is going to be kind of home base for our teachers. And so this is where we're going to jump off into the LMS functionality. But before I go through what we have on this screen, I think it is important for the purpose of this conversation to take a step backward so that everyone understands just conceptually how Infinite Campus is laid out and organized for all the LMS functionality that is going to sit on top. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my screen just a little bit. So as you look at this screen, you can really break this down into three different components. Over on the left-hand side with that black background, that's going to be our main menu. That's also going to be where we're going to search for different pieces of information. And depending on who you are and what your role is within the PSU, that's going to determine what areas over here on the left-hand side you have access to. Our focus today is going to be on the LMS tools, and that's all going to be housed inside this area here called instruction. Okay, that's the first part. The second part, I want you to take your eyes to the very top where we have that green background, and that's going to be our header. And specifically over here, we have what's called a context selector. So a little bit different than inside PowerSchool. You will have a single login to a single site that will give you access to whatever years and whatever schools that you need access to, single login. So in this particular example here, I do have access to multiple years worth of data. I do have access to multiple schools across those different years. We're going to be focused on current year for this school called Harrison High. And the third and the final piece of Infinite Campus is just this main area right here. And this is going to be our workspace. And this is where we're going to perform most of our actions that we're going to talk about today. That's the first thing. The second thing, everything around LMS functionality or what teachers deal with is all based on courses. So inside Infinite Campus, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to search for one of our courses that we're going to be using today for our demonstration. That course happens to be an English 3 course. So over on the left-hand side, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at an English 3 course. And specifically, we're going to look at a section of that particular course. And we're going to be dealing with the section 99. So just a couple things that I think are important for everyone to just understand, to just level set what we're going to talk about today. So each course can have one or can have multiple sections. And then specifically what I wanted to call your attention to, and there was a couple questions about this from the feedback that we asked about, and it's called section staff history. And so in this particular area, the section staff history allows the PSU to associate one or multiple teachers to a particular section. So you can only have one teacher of record or one primary teacher. But if you were in a situation where there was an exceptional children's staff person, or there was a gifted or an EL staff person that was supplementing in a classroom, this is where you can certainly come through and add as many additional teachers as you need to. Okay. The next thing related to sections are going to be your rosters. And so as far as what students are in the class, okay, regardless of how you're going to use Infinite Campus, these are just core pieces that are fundamental to our operations. So we're going to have different students that are certainly associated to the course, right? And then the last thing that I just want to talk about, just to level set everything, is with respect to each one of our courses, there is grading information that needs to be associated. And so in this sample course that I am using, this sample course is providing for students to receive a midterm or a progress grade halfway through each of the 9-week quarters. This is configured to receive a quarter grade or a 9-week grade. This is set up where there's an EOC, and then there's a final grade in which we receive course credit. Okay. And the configuration of this is going to be done for each one of your PSUs and for each one of the different courses, but this is a fundamental piece, and we support whether you do cumulative grading, a 40-40-20 split, a 50-50 split, any of those different models are all supported. This is just an example that we have here. Okay. And then on this particular course, just one other thing that I wanted to highlight, it's something where we talk about what's called grade calc options. And this is something that allows us to actually have the calculator that makes Infinite Campus grades calculate. And so in this example, if you look down at the bottom, this is configured to be a 40-40-20 split for that final grade. All right. And then the last thing before I jump into the actual LMS functionality is I'm just going to switch gears and look at a different course. So this is going to be one of our courses that we're going to look at. The other course is going to be an elementary course. And all the structures that they just talked about are the same with one exception. I want to make sure that everyone understands that as far as LMS functionality, we're not restricted to just the traditional points earned out of points possible configuration with a final grade that receives credit. We also fully support standards-based or competency-based grading. And so in this particular sample, and we'll look at this as we go through this morning, this particular course has several standards or skills or competencies in which we're assessing, and we have a whole variety of different calculation types that Infinite Campus is able to support with these. Okay. Now, the reason that I started out with this is I want everyone to understand as we go into this LMS conversation, there's really going to be 3 different pathways that a PSU can go down. And one of those pathways is going to be if you're currently using a third-party LMS, and whether that's Canvas, Google Classroom, or Schoology. And if the decision was made to stay with that system for certain pieces of functionality, the configuration that we're talking about right here is still fundamental to those operations. We still need that structure in place, but we're going to support that. The second model that we're going to talk about is fully utilizing the functionality that comes with Infinite Campus for each one of your PSUs and doing all LMS functions within Infinite Campus. And the third option that is out there is a hybrid model, which will allow for some of the functionality using a third-party system while still taking advantage of some functionality within Infinite Campus. With all of that, I'm going to change gears and I'm going to come back over to the instructional tools where we can actually look at some of those courses that I just got done providing a high-level overview of. Kathy, before I jump into the teacher side, any questions that I can address?
Yep, a couple have come in. Are the standards preloaded? What about the new 2023 science standards?
Standards will be preloaded. That is an activity that is ongoing between myself and some folks at DPI, but there will be a set of standards that will be loaded in for all PSUs.
If a teacher leaves mid-semester, will grades/work be lost when the teacher is made inactive?
Great question. They are not. The assignments, the assignment scores, any of the curriculum content is going to be connected to the actual section. So in the situation where you have a teacher that goes out halfway through or partway through a grading period or a grading term, then what we do back on that section staff history is we will end date that teacher's association. We will add a new teacher of record with a new effective date, and all of the student work, all of the course content just remains in a single workflow, no disruptions.
And will the student ID number remain the same, or will students receive a new ID number?
Nope, IDs, the issuance of IDs, that's all going to remain the same.
And then there's a question about online training modules. Will there be some type of online training modules at some point?
Yep, there will be.
That's it.
Okay, perfect. All right. So as we come in, this is the teaching center. So I was saying this is kind of home base for our teachers. And the way that this is laid out is based upon the different schools. So I will start by saying if you have itinerant staff in your district or in your PSU that maybe work part-time at one building and part-time at another building, art, music, PE teachers, for example, they will have a single landing page and they will show broken down by site all the different courses that they're ultimately responsible for. But the way these cards are broken down, you can see the number, the 1, 2, 3, that is related to the period. So during period 1, I have this particular course with this number of students in it. Period 2, I'm teaching math 4, etc. At the bottom of that, you're going to see 5 little rectangles. And so this is just an easy way where we can come through, and as a teacher, if I need to take attendance, this is where I would take my attendance, okay, directly there. If there's a to-do list as far as any content or assignments that I need to score or outstanding work, and we'll come back to these, this is where that quick direct link is going to exist. If there's any kind of discussions, communications that are happening, whether I'm involved or whether they're student conversations that are ongoing, this is where I'll be able to access that information. If students have asked digital questions, okay, through their version of Infinite Campus, if they have a question for the teacher, this is going to be a quick link that's going to allow the teacher to come through and see those questions. And again, I'll dive into all this. I just want to at least lay the groundwork for what you're seeing here. And then there's something here called engagement. And so this is another neat piece that we have that is going to allow us to come through and take a look at feedback as it relates to different kinds of questions. Okay. But where we're going to go is we're going to open up our particular course. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this blue link that is going to take me into my classroom. And so if you pause your eyes just for a second, up here at the very top, you're going to see there are 4 different areas that we can navigate to. I have something that's called a classroom. I have something that's called curriculum, students, and grades. Well, to start the LMS conversation, really where I want to come to is over on this curriculum side. And so the curriculum area of Infinite Campus is going to house anything that has been created. And when we talk about curriculum, we're talking about units, we're talking about lesson plans, we're talking about assignments. And to start this conversation, okay, we're going to be specifically talking about assignments. And I wanted to go down the first scenario, which is You're currently using a third-party system. And again, whether that system is Google, whether it's Canvas, whether it's Schoology, and I want to walk through what that process is going to look like. So when you come through, and I'm going to pause my screen as far as sharing just for a quick moment. And so what I want you to notice here is I have 3 different pieces of content, which we'll talk about in just a quick moment. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come through, and I have a way in which I can mimic what that functionality does if you're creating assignments and you're scoring those assignments in a third-party LMS. And so right now I'm just in that system, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just creating some content so that you can see. So I have done that, and so I will reshare my screen. Okay, and I'm just going to simply refresh up here at the very top. And what you're going to see now in my list of curriculum, if you take your eyes down here to the bottom, we have something that's called an NC Assignment 1. And that NC Assignment 1 actually just showed up in my curriculum list, although I had nothing to do with it inside Infinite Campus. This was something that was created, and this is something that was scored in an outside system. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this up. And in this particular example, up here at the top, you're going to see there's kind of a tan highlight. And it says this assignment was imported from an external tool. Okay, and what that means is that the content itself, the assignment itself, the system of record for that is that third-party system. Okay, the system of record for the score is that third-party system. When I come into Infinite Campus, I cannot modify this because I'm just consuming that information that was created outside of Infinite Campus. And so if I come through, I can certainly modify if my students are able to see this. I can modify other pieces, but really all we're doing on the Infinite Campus side is just consuming that information. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cancel out of this, and I'm going to come over to the score screen. And so inside Infinite Campus, again, not only did this process create the assignment, but it scored that student work and it did the calculation for an in-progress grade. All of that is happening behind the scenes. So going all the way back to the very beginning, how does all of this work? This all works based on the one roster specification, which is a part of the One EdTech Now specs. And so coming through, what's really happening behind the scenes is that course information, that section, that teacher, that roster of students, all of that information is flowing from Infinite Campus to that third-party system. In that third-party system, the assignment is created, the score is entered, that information comes back into Infinite Campus, and that's what we're seeing here. So I wanted to start with that, whereas everything that you're seeing today, I want you to at least understand that if you have a third party, that's how those third parties work inside Infinite Campus. Okay. Kathy, any questions on the integration piece?
Well, we have a couple that are sort of left over from before, sort of came in a little bit later. So we have, I'll just go through all of these here. Can each teacher use different grade calculations and assign what the weight is for each category?
Yes.
If a student transfers from one school to another within the same district, will their grades transfer in the system?
It would be a manual. It will not be an automatic transfer.
Can the grade calculation setup, so 40-40-20 or 50-50, for the final grade calculation be set up for all courses as at one time, or does it have to be set up one course at a time?
Nope, there's a copy feature. And just to clarify on that, so I'm in the business consulting group. There's a handful of us that are in our group. Each PSU will be signed a business consultant, and we will work directly with each PSU, and we will be doing that configuration.
All right, and then can existing Canvas courses be exported into Infinite Campus?
So content from Canvas is exportable in a common cartridge format, and Infinite Campus supports the consumption of common cartridge formats.
So then, yes, this other question was similar to that one. So I think we're good.
Okay, cool. So that's the third party. Again, the key thing is Courses and the grading of those courses still needs to be configured in Infinite Campus. All of the teacher assignments, the rostering of students, that's done in the Infinite Campus system, and the third party, again, system of record for the assignments and the scores.
One more question came in. Will Infinite Campus support multiple integrations? So Google Classroom and Canvas?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the second process, which is using all of the feature functionality of the Infinite Campus LMS. And so we'll start this with the curriculum area in which I'm at right now. So I already have a few things that have been set up, but I think it's important just to make sure everyone understands how curriculum gets built or how curriculum can get built inside Infinite Campus. So if you take your eyes up to the top, there's a blue button that has a drop down to the right, and it says Add. So there's different types of curriculum that can be added to Infinite Campus. So when I open this drop down up, if you just focus on the first three, I think that's most important for right now. So we have something that are things that are called folders, resources, and assignments. And you can think in terms of folders just being organizational structures. Okay, there's no actual metadata that's associated with a folder. It's just a way in which we can group things. So oftentimes folders are used as units. Here's my unit 1 course of study, whatever that is. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a folder just so you can see how this structure works. Okay. You're going to notice over on the right-hand side, really the only thing that I can do is if I'm creating this, I can create it internally for just me, where my students and my parents cannot see that. That's the visible to class for now. And then I can certainly have start and end dates on there if needed. Otherwise, this can just exist out there. There's no issue. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that. Now, up at the very top, what you're going to notice is it starts to build out a series of breadcrumbs. And so this is a way in which you can build curriculum units with lots of different lesson plans. Maybe lesson plans have assignments or assessments that are associated with them. Maybe they don't. And so as we come through, I'm in the context of the punctuation and grammar unit. And so I can go ahead and I can add additional things. There is a hierarchy here, so I can't create, right, in opposite order. I can't create a resource and tie it to an assignment. So I can take assignments and tie them to resources. Assignments can go to folders. Resources can go to folders. And so there is a hierarchy there. But I'll just come through and I'm going to create a resource. Now you might say, what's a resource inside Infinite Campus? The way that I would explain a resource inside Infinite Campus is simply something that you want to communicate out that is not scored. Okay, there's no scoring that is happening. This is just one directional communication. We could elicit feedback from students or parents, but at the end of the day, this is really just the teacher communicating information out. And so I'm just going to say weekly spelling list. Okay, really it doesn't matter what this particular item is. I'm just going to leave this as a weekly spelling list, and this is going to be part of my resource. Now over here on the right hand side, again, I can make this visible to my class or not. I can use dates or I can leave my dates just wide open. Now, some of you are taking your eyes over to the left-hand side. We'll come back to that momentarily. We're going to skip it for right now. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to save that. So again, up here at the very top, you start to see this data structure that gets built out. I have this folder or this unit. I have a resource or just some piece of information that I'm communicating out. And then I can go ahead and if I wanted to build the structure out, I can certainly create what's called an assignment, something that is actually going to be scored. So I'm just going to call this weekly spelling test. And again, over here on the right-hand side, when are we giving the spelling test? We're giving it today. We'll talk more about all of those fields. I can give it a short name. I can say what category. Again, PSUs will be able to determine what those categories are. I can go ahead and I can say how many points this is worth. I'm just going to make it a 10-point assignment, and I can go ahead and I can save that. The reason that I wanted to start with this just right out of the gate is I think it's important for you to understand just how content can get built inside Infinite Campus. And that's a very, very simple, very easy structure that I just simply want to go through and I want to highlight. So again, what I just created was I created a unit. Inside that unit, okay, I have a resource and I also have an assignment, something that is going to get scored. Okay. Now, I'm going to come back and I'm actually going to throw that one away because I have some stuff that's already built and I want to come through and I want to show you a better, more robust example. So we're going to start with this first one where I have English 3 documents and helpful resources. So in this particular example, I created something as a teacher for consumption by students and parents. And so the first thing that I did was I created this folder, okay? And that's what I called it, English 3 Docs and Helpful Resources. And inside of that, I created 3 different resources. And so this is an easy way where a teacher can create, again, content. Could be a syllabi, could be resources, key concepts and vocab, study guides for an upcoming assessment. Could be anything that we just want to communicate out. Now, I'll go ahead and I'll just open one of these up. This first one is far as a course syllabi. Now, if you take your eyes over to the left-hand side, there's an area here that's called summary. And you'll see a lot more examples here. This is just the first one to start. And so again, if I want to come through and if there's information that I need to share out to my students, perfect. I can either manually type in here, or if I have it stored somewhere else, I can simply copy and paste that information in. Coming back, if I had something that was out there that had, hey, here's a bunch of vocab words and I wanted to come out and open something up, cool, we can go ahead and we can do anything like that. But again, this is a data structure that allows me, the teacher, to be able to create something for student consumption. Now, what's important is not necessarily what I'm doing on the teacher side, but what my students are actually going to see. So if you take your eyes to the very upper right corner, there's a piece of functionality in here that's called View as Student. Okay? So if you don't have a student that is using Infinite Campus, you might be in the dark a little bit about what you're doing and how students and parents are actually going to consume that information. Well, this is a great feature in here. So what this allows you to do is see a list of students in your particular class. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to see how that English 3 Docs and Helpful Resources is viewed by my student. So if I come out here, the view looks the same. Okay, and that's on purpose. We're trying to have a seamless experience for teachers, students, and parents. But this view that you're on right now, this is actually the student view. And so from the student view, this is what I was just showing you. This is the exact same view that a student or a parent would have. And so coming through, again, I can get out to that information. So a seamless way in which teachers can create that content and share that out. Absolutely nothing that the students need to do. It's just out there for me to grab as I need to. Kathy, any questions on just that first part there?
There are a few questions that have come in, but first there are a number of them that came in about the import. And so I'll just maybe make a statement about that.
Yep, absolutely.
Because it is the common cartridge. So if you've used common cartridge before, it would act similarly to that. So for those of you who were asking if it behaves similarly to other experiences you've had, yes, it would do that. We use the common cartridge, one ed tech specs. And so if what is coming through should be able to be consumed for the most part. Some things might break in the process, but we're working through and we're having additional conversations with Rebecca and a few others to get some recommendations together and to help streamline some of those things. So I think that sort of hopefully will cover some of the import questions that have come through. But in addition, we've had some others. Can parents be added to the course as viewers?
There are portal settings. So portal is the student or the parent version of Infinite Campus. And so there are toggle switches where we can enable or disable certain pieces of functionality for both students and parents. So they can be treated separately, but that certainly is an option for the student contacts.
Does the document have to be created in Infinite Campus, or can you upload or copy and paste documents you already have and put them in?
So the ones that I had put in here, I did not manually type those. I copied and pasted those. You'll see in just a moment if you have docs that are stored in Google or just on a desktop or a flash drive, I'll certainly show how those can be uploaded as well.
Or can district level courses for staff, PD, et cetera, live in campus learning?
Say that one again.
Can district level courses, I think this is for staff PD, I think is what this means, live in campus learning?
So the functionality that I'm talking about is specifically targeted to students as learners, not staff as learners.
Does it allow for LTI integration?
Yes, you'll see that momentarily.
I didn't think you showed that yet. Does Infinite Campus have a lesson plan monitoring tool for school leadership?
Yes, I will show that.
See, we have a district level Canvas courses that contain curriculum resources for teachers. Can district level courses be created since there's no course code to attach them to?
Yes, they could be, and content could be fed in, and I'll talk about that momentarily.
Can a district program grade, and it gives an example, calculation and lockdown so teachers cannot change?
Let's table that one. I'm not sure what that one means.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think this is back to the beginning now.
Okay.
These are import ones, so I think we covered those with.
All right, I'm going to keep cruising.
Okay.
Okay, so on the screen, I want to open up the poetry unit because I created a folder that's called poetry unit, and then I created an assignment that sits inside of that has a lot of the functionality enabled. Not all, but a lot of the functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up this poetry unit. Hey, and inside this, I've created an assignment. So stopping by woods on a snowy evening. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this up. Okay. This is, again, the teacher side of Infinite Campus. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit this just so you can see as I was creating this, what I did, what options exist as we come through. So we're going to focus on the left side of the screen to start. So on the left side of the screen, I gave this a name, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. And then I kind of skipped over that summary, but the summary is really important. And this is a great area in which information can be placed for communication to students and their contacts. So as you would expect, so this is HTML. So one of the questions from last week on the call was, can you embed HTML code? And the answer there is yes. But you can also do everything that you would expect as far as bold and italics and underline. You can add hyperlinks if you need to be directed outside of Infinite Campus. If you have images that you want to upload, perfect. If you want to have embedded YouTube videos so you don't have to open up a new screen, awesome, we support that. Certainly text. And so again, this whole summary area here, okay, the summary area, again, is going to be just one directional. There's no interactions, just communicating out. Then as we come down, okay, some of you would just ask about learning tools. And so coming through, there's different kinds of content in which you can associate, okay? So files, for the person that asked the question, about can you just upload content that you already have saved off somewhere? Absolutely. This is no different than anything else that you do with the file upload. You go out, you grab the location, and you can upload any attachment, any number of attachments that you need to. For those of you that maybe keep some of your content in Google, coming out, I'll demonstrate this more robustly in just a moment, but being able to come out here, it'll automatically open up to your Google Drive. You grab the content which you need to select. Nice and easy. Okay, learning tools, okay, through LTI connections. And so this is an example here where I used Wikipedia, but again, coming through LTI providers, and this is just a sample from my particular site. This simply allows you to come out and launch one of those LTI connections directly for your consumers. There's a ability to add in different kinds of notes. The nice thing about notes can be internal or they can be external. And so if these were notes just for your own purpose that you don't need students or teachers to see, awesome, just keep it here. If you want everyone to be able to see it, just switch the toggle over and you get all the same functionality that you have up above. And then last but not least, certainly web links. If you have third-party sites that you want your users to go to that are in a learning tool connection, you can just add in a web link. Right? And then as we come down, we have we have submissions. And so as soon as we want to take what we're doing and make it not just one directional, as soon as we want to support bidirectional data, meaning that students have the ability to digitally do something, communicate back to the teacher, you have three different options on here. There's something that's called an editor, which is just going to give your students a free-form text box in which they can type their narrative response. A file upload, again, no different than sending an email and uploading a file attachment. And then Google Drive. And so we're certainly going to support the same functionality for students to be able to log into their Google and upload a document and submit to the teacher, all of which I will demonstrate momentarily. But when we talk about an assignment and we talk about content, this is exactly what we're talking about. If you take your eyes down to the bottom, there's a nice piece of functionality that exists here called preview. So again, if I'm creating content and I want to see what my students might see or what my parents might see, and that's where I was talking about the difference. We can have different settings for students versus parents. But if I want to see the student view of this, this is the student view. This is what a student would see, the exact same data structure. The only thing that I would call your attention to that I think is very nice is this is all built with responsive design. And so if I was to scale this down, and now I'm on a mobile device, so this happens to be an iPhone 12, okay? This is what the student view would be on a mobile device, okay? I go ahead and I'm gonna just, let's cancel out of that. Okay. All right. Right-hand side, I think it's also important for you to understand some of the functionality that exists here. So when we create any of our content, again, we have the ability to control when this information is available for students or parents. And so if, I'm in a draft mode or I don't want them to see this until Monday, go ahead and you can have this turned off or you can have it turned on. Start and end, synonymous with assigned and due dates. And then as you come down, there's something here called students. So there's a lot of conversation around personalization, individualized. Those are words that get thrown about. What this students is connected to, or the way that I describe this, is individualized pacing. We have a group of students that need to do this. Could be all students, could be a subset of students. And so being able to come through and I can target what students this assignment is relevant to. If I had dynamic student groups, okay, I can target this to a very small subset. From within here, and on any of these settings, I have the ability to do custom dates. And so maybe Dimitri's not ready for this assignment, still needs to do it, but we're going to be a week behind the other students. And so we can have tailored dates by student. We can have specific students in which we need to associate this particular piece of content to. So this students is a very cool piece of functionality. As we come down, you have something called release scores. And so the way I describe this is like a conditional release based on a particular date. Maybe the student submitted an essay project that's going to take the teacher some amount of time to score. Instead of releasing feedback on a regular basis as the assignments are scored, maybe we're going to give our teacher a week and we're not going to release those scores and we're not going to have the grade recalculate until a specific teacher-determined date and time in the future. Okay. And then as we mentioned earlier, the categories, those are going to be PSU determined, formative, summative, quizzes, tests, whatever those might be. Right. And then one of my favorite things on here, and you'll get to see how this plays out. On your right-hand side, there's something that is called scoring rubric. And so you all can think about, if you're teachers or if you're parents of students, think about a time where you received or you saw a grade come back and maybe a student received 7 out of 10, 70 out of 100, something like that. And oftentimes on the paper, right, you'll just have 70 or 75 out of 100, and there might not be meaningful feedback. Scoring rubrics allow for a way to communicate the specific expectations proactively for students and their contacts. And then it allows the teacher to have an interactive rubric directly built into Infinite Campus. So in this particular example, what I have done is I've gone in and I've said, yes, this assignment is worth 100 points. Okay. And again, this is just me providing something for us to look at as far as this conversation. So I have an assignment, stopping by woods on a snowy evening. I've said the assignment is worth 100 points. In order for students to receive that full 100-point value, I'm going to be assessing them specifically on 3 different criteria or 3 areas. And within those 3 areas, I have identified a point value related to each one of those criteria. And I can choose the number of rows, I can choose the number of columns that are on here. I can have an auto calculation of points. I can also hard code the number of points based on the intersection of the criteria and the description of that. Okay. So I've gone ahead and I've used that. And so that's my robust assignment. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch gears just for a second. I'm going to come back over to my student view of Infinite Campus. And so again, I'm coming back over. This is my student view. And I'm going to come back down to that particular assignment. So I'm going to open up this course, right? Here's that assignment from a student view. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come down here to the bottom and look right here on the right-hand side. This assignment hasn't been scored. It's just been given to my students to do. But one of the things that I think is great on here is I have the ability to come through and I can see going into this particular assignment what the expectations are. Okay, so as a student who wants to get all of the points, I know exactly what it is that I need to do in order to receive that point value. Now, coming down to the bottom, right? All of that functionality that you saw, but now here's my 3 different options. And so I have the opportunity to write a narrative response. I have the ability to upload a file. I have the ability to attach something from Google. Okay, we're going to hit Google separately in just a moment. So I'm just going to come through and I'm just going to do something like this. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that in. And again, this is coming from the student side of Infinite Campus. Now, where I have just gone is I'm back on the teacher side. Okay, so I'm back on the teacher side now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to this area that's called score. So I want to score student work. And so coming through, I think this is a really great thing for you to be able to see. If you remember that assignment, I had a lot of robust things that were in there. I had attachments, I had embedded YouTube videos, I could launch an LTI tool. Not that you would do all of those things, but you could see the functionality that existed. But because I had a scoring rubric associated to it, and I'm allowing my students to do a digital submission, this is the experience that a teacher has when they come to score student work. This is what I just did. Here's Dylan. And so I have a split screen, and on the left-hand side, I can see what that digital submission was. And on the right side, I have an interactive grid now as a teacher. I can go ahead, I can mark those. In the very bottom right-hand corner, it's going to calculate the student score. I have an opportunity to write specific comments related to each one of the criteria. I have an opportunity to write overall comments, and I can go ahead, I can save that. One of the other things that you're going to see up here at the top is something that says reassign to the student. So if the student submitted something and I want them to rework it and resubmit it, I can turn control back. Okay. Just as another example, this is one that I did this morning, right? This is a Google submission that a student did. And so I wanted to highlight this from the standpoint, when a Google submission comes in, I still get that split screen for scoring. But on the left-hand side, not only do I see the student submission, but I have all of the same robust functionality that Google has as far as being able to interact and provide feedback. All of that based on my assignment for stopping by woods on a snowy evening. I got a bunch more stuff to go through, but I'm going to stop because I've gone for a little bit here.
Yes, I was trying to respond to some of them,
Okay.
but I'll just backtrack here and grab a few that I didn't have time to. So question here, what does the parent view look like? Can they see submissions and quizzes or just the assignment and the grade?
They'll be able to see the submissions, but they will not be able to actually do the work.
Excuse me, is there an iOS app for Infinite Campus LMS for easy submission / upload from external apps like PDF editors, collage creation apps, Pages, Keynote, etc.?
We do have native iOS mobile device apps, but the way in which I was describing this previously, this is all built in a responsive nature. So when I come back over again, this is that student view. This is the student portal, and I can just change this over to a mobile device. This is the experience. So this is your mobile device, and this is exactly what the student would have access to.
You're going to be talking more about Google
Yep.
Drive in a little bit, so there are some questions about how that works.
Okay.
So we'll hold off on those. Another question about importing of assignments, and this one in particular about multiple courses at a time. And so I'll just comment that this is some of this is limited to how things can be exported from the third-party LMS. So again, we're going to be meeting with Rebecca and a few others to talk through some of those different scenarios. So we'll get some recommendations out about that. Can we upload rubrics?
Right now, the rubrics are going to be connected to assignments, like what you just saw. Technically, we could have a rubric bank based on a series of assignments that are connected to rubrics, but they're kind of assignment connected right now.
Next is in Canvas, there's a Canvas blueprint, which allows for a parent course to create individual sections that can be updated during a sync. Is this possible to have a base course that can provide master course content when making multiple sections? Do you need to copy a course one by one?
I'll do that.
Okay. And there's another one here about so that you'll cover with library pieces. Can you create school-specific templates, course skeletons at the district level to accommodate school branding, logos, colored theme, etc., that can then be pushed out in auto-created courses?
Course theme, no.
And we'll cover that one. I think I got most of them since the last time. So,
okay.
There might be a new one here. Okay, yeah, so you already covered that one. All right, we're good.
Okay. All right, so back down to the creation of content. So I hit on folders, I hit on resources, I hit on assignments. Okay, so we're just going to stay focused on those three right now. And what you've seen so far in the presentation is just me, a teacher, coming through, and I'm creating that information for myself. Okay, so a couple things that I want to kind of spin off from that. So as far as any of my content that I'm creating, and again, I'm in the context of a particular section for English 3. In the upper right-hand corner, there is a copy button. And so this allows for the copying of curriculum from one course and section that I'm teaching to another. And so if I had a piece of content or a unit of study in which I'm like, yeah, I'm going to use this in my period 2 class and period 3, period 4, etc. I can go ahead and I can copy one piece or all pieces of that curriculum to any of my other courses and sections. Okay, this also spans school years. And so starting with the 24-25 school year, right, you might do some cool stuff. You might not do some of it in the 25-26. And then the following school year, if you wanted to come back and bring forward something that you did a couple of years ago, this tool allows you to move your curriculum from one place to another. It's one section at a time, but there's a really easy workflow in here that allows you to repeat the process. Okay? Second thing that I wanted to hit on here is I can come through, and again, when I'm creating content, if I'm teaching multiple classes, right, you're not going to do this one section at a time if you're teaching this piece of content over and over again. And so one of the things that you have the ability to do is you can come through. Yeah, we'll use this particular assignment. Okay, you can come through and within any of your pieces of content, you have the ability down here to assign it to any of your other sections. So down here, once I have this piece of content saved for one of my classes, I can go ahead and I can save and I can add it to other sections. And so for a teacher that's teaching the same course 2, 3, 6, 7 times, right? You're only creating content, whatever that content is, one time, and then you can assign that to all of your different classes in a single workflow. Okay, trying to streamline that process and make it nice and easy for you. And then the last piece on this that I wanted to hit is a button up here at the top that's called the library. So as someone, and I use that term loosely, as someone that is creating content, whatever that content might be, there's an opportunity to push that content into a library. And so you're going to notice up here, there's a button that's called Share. And so when I come through, I have an opportunity to say, hey, this is a cool piece of content that other people in the district would have, benefit in using in their particular classrooms. So I can take my curriculum resources and I can push those to a library. That's an option that exists. If that content exists in the library, then there's data that sits behind this button here called library. And what this is going to do is this is going to provide a card for each piece of content that has been shared to the curriculum library. Now, up at the very top, you can certainly search for content based on partial word searches of that content, but you also have the ability to come through and you can add filters. And so when we're creating these curriculum resources, we can certainly tag them with a grade level or series of grade levels that are relevant, a subject or multiple subject areas, and then to the question about standards, based on the standards or the competencies that exist in your PSU's database, you can certainly search or filter based on curriculum standards. So some different ways in which you're able to target curriculum that you're looking at. Now, I'm going to come through this banned book project. And so that card on the right-hand side, right, this is a piece of curriculum that someone has pushed out to the curriculum library. I could just blindly come in and say, I want to add this to my particular class for use. Okay, it's taking a copy of that and it's going to bring it into my classroom. Or I have the ability to come through and I can open this up and I can see the full structure of that curriculum. Going all the way back to the beginning when I was talking about units and resources and assignments, that's what you're seeing here. The Banned Books project is the unit. Okay, as I open this up, I have lots of different resources. Within one of my resources, I might have, again, more detailed pieces of information. And so I'm going to use this kind of as a jump off point where I'm going to have Kathy jump in just a moment. So I have some curriculum that has been set up here. I'm just going to click on this quick quiz. My assumption is that many of you have quizzes or would like to have quizzes that are directly embedded in a SIS. And so this is just an example where I have 2 questions. I come through, right? Which freedom is not included in the First Amendment, right? Here's my answers. This is what's been set up. Awesome. Right? All that stuff looks good. And so when I come through, if I wanted this piece of curriculum brought into my classroom, all I need to do is just simply add it to my section. Okay? And so when I add it to my section, it's going to give me a split screen where on the left-hand side, I can see this piece of curriculum that I want to bring into my classroom. But I also have the ability to open this up, and if there's particular components, particular resources or assignments or assessments that aren't applicable to my students, I can certainly deselect. For my example, I'm going to say I'm going to bring it all forward. I'm going to go ahead and it's going to bring me to a next screen. And I understand there's a lot of stuff going on here, especially in the middle. So just pause for a second. So because we don't know when this curriculum should be done in our classroom, the start dates and the end dates are all blank. So there's no right or wrong way to do this, but I'm going to come through and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the 26th, Monday of this week, for both the start date and the end date. And there's a reason for this. So I'm just going to leave all of those. And then you're also going to notice that there's a column here called visible. And so if you're grabbing curriculum from the library and sucking it into your classroom, by default, we're not going to display that to students and their contacts. You have to purposefully come through and enable that. And then there is no grading configuration for any of the actual assignments. And so that's certainly something that can be set up on assignment by assignment, or you have a way to mass fill that information. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to simply save that. Okay. Because there's additional documents that are uploaded, we're going to give you a copyright warning just to make sure that you're okay grabbing this. And then we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Allows you to quickly come in and copy another. So what that did when I launched that library, that brought this whole structure of curriculum into my classroom. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy here for a minute because I was having us focus on the first three, the folders, the resources, and the assignments. Well, the bottom three on this list, discussions, quizzes, and submissions, those get called out because they're kind of unique, but any of those discussions, quizzes, and submissions can all be connected to assignments and or resources. So when we talk about discussions, quizzes, and submissions, again, those things can be activities that are happening in my classroom where we're scoring them, or they don't have to be scored at all. And I think quizzes has some really useful cases. That's a big development effort that we've been working on that we're excited to release. And because it's so close to going out the door, I'm going to have Kathy walk you through the redesigned quizzes that's going to be coming. Kathy, you good?
All right. Yes.
I'm going to stop sharing here.
All right. And then I will go ahead and share my screen. Does that look good on your side?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to log in here as a teacher. And like Stephen said, this is all stuff that's currently in development. The release plan for the enhanced quizzes is for later this spring with additional enhancements coming out throughout the summer. So I'm just going to go in and do a quick tour of what it looks like for both the student or for the teacher and the student. So you just get a sense of what's on its way. So I'll come in here to add an assignment. And same thing that Stephen was just showing, you would be able to put in all of your assignment information right here on this screen. And then as we come down to quiz, we have a new screen here. So on the left-hand side, you will see the ability to have multiple pages. And this is where you can sort of manage where you are in the quiz. And then on the right-hand side here is a place where you can add any instructions. So whatever details you want to include for students, you can include there. A few settings here on the bottom. We're just going to zip through here and go to adding questions. Now it's going to default to multiple choice question type. But what I want to show is that we have a number of different question types that you'll be able to add with this release. And I'll just quickly go through and show you what these look like on the teacher side. So from the top, you'll be able to put in your question prompt, and then a few setting options that you have, the ability to allow for multiple answers, which just changes this around so you can have multiple correct answers. And when you do that, you have the ability to allow for partial credit and randomizing the response order. You have the option to do that regardless, the randomizing response order, but you have the partial credit when you have multiple answers. So that's just a little bit about what this looks like for for multiple choice. True, false, it looks very similar, but the true, false is just auto-populated for you. Short answer essay, again, you have your ability to put your prompt in here, and then your options here are for either plain text or rich text. With plain text, you can have a word limit. With rich text, that's not part of that. That word limit would go away. But the rich text just allows for the students to have the same functionality that you see on the teacher side here. Next question type is a fill in the blank. And with fill in the blank, we've got a few options. You just type in your prompt here. And then for the response, you have some sort of icon will be here for you to indicate what the response would look like. If you have multiple, you can allow for partial credit. And then these will look at like either text entry, a drop down, or drag and drop. And I'll show what each of those look like on the student side here in just a little bit. But that's how you would configure that, is you would just choose which one you want to enter. Then we have number line. So number line allows you to put in your prompt and then sort out your number line here. So the way that you do that, if it's going to be something maybe in social studies, you might have this be starting out with 1925 and going to 1950, for example, and you want the tick distance to be maybe every 5. And then you have a few other options here to snap to click or have the exact match or not. But then as you scroll down, you can see what that looks like, right? So you can edit and then go back and change some of these as you need. Add your points here. And then once you change this to first response, come down and then that fills in here. And then you can place them on the line to indicate the correct answer. Matching, again, your prompt on top. You've got some options here in the settings, and then you just have your ability to edit right in here to give your stimulus and your responses. Ordering is another one you have that you put them in the correct order here, and it'll do all the scoring for you. And then numerical is here. So this is similar to the fill in the blank, but this time the answers would be numerical. One other thing that I'll just point out is when you do ask a question, so and you fill this in with one of these and you move on. Oops, I need to do something else here. Oh, I need to fill in the answer. Just do 5. All this done. And then when you get to this point, then you'll see that you can change the point value as well. So you can make this worth as many points as you'd like it to be. And I'll show what that looks like on the teacher side. The other piece is that you can move the questions around. So when you have multiple, you can move them around quite easily to change up the way that your quiz looks. So we'll just add this here. See if I can, let's cancel out of there because we're not going to save that one. Next, I'll go in to show what it looks like for students. So we'll log in here as a student. I'm just going to show a quiz that I created earlier. So for here, the students will come in. We'll see they have this quiz due today. So we'll just come in and take a look at this quiz. So the student can start the quiz. And they have the instructions that come in here. You'll see on the left-hand side, I've got multiple pages that I've configured here. And then the student can go ahead and start the quiz. So they just come through. Here's an example of a multiple choice. We have this worth 1 point, so the student knows how many points it's worth. So they can just come through and answer. As they answer, it shows their progress on the left-hand side. And then here we can respond. There are 3 correct answers, but I'm just going to do 2 just to show what that looks like on the teacher side. Just go through. Here we have a short answer. The student can see how many points this is worth. So here we can maybe say, do something quick. I'm just going to add a couple more words just so that you can see the word limit changing here. And we'll just do, and then, so that was the fill in the blank with the text. And then here we have the drop down. So we can add here. And then this is the drag and drop. So you can put these in as well. Here's the example of a timeline, so I can just throw these in. In this case, I don't have it clicking to because these aren't directly on these particular dates. So we can just put these nearish, and let's see. Don't remember the exact dates, but we'll get them in the right order. Here we have matching. So here we can, you'll see here that I didn't show this previously, but you can see here that this allows for some distractors to be added to. So there are 4 answers, but there are more responses than that. So we can put these in this. And let's see that. And then we go to page 2 here. If you had a new set of instructions, you could just enter those here. And then we want to put these in order. Let's see. I have to read through these and think a little bit. I think that was here. Here we go. Oh, no, this is going to be here. I think this was up here. All right, we'll see. We're just going to click on here. And this is a numerical, and then this is a numerical also with just a little bit, shows you a little bit what the editor can do as well. Then as a student, you can come down and review. That will show you that you've answered all of them. So if any of them were skipped, then it would indicate that with a different icon. And then the student can go ahead and submit. All right, we'll jump back over to the teacher side. And here we will, I'll just refresh this. All right, here we now see that there are 2 scored. There was 1 scored earlier. And then I can just jump in and click right in here to see some of those scores. So I'll, oops, let's see. Goes out of here. I want to go to my scoring screen. So this is a student who took this this quiz yesterday. So works the same way though. I can just scroll through and see how they answered. When there is one that is partial credit, it shows up with a different icon. These icons will eventually, like I said, this hasn't been released yet. These icons will also show up over here like you saw on the student side, but right now in this site, they're not showing up there. But you can see the partial credit is a different color, and then when they are wrong, it would be in red. And then what we can also do is we've got a filter over here where we can just look at the ones that were correct or incorrect. If we want to see the ones that are incorrect, it's like, or the ones that are unscored. So this one, we have the question 4, which was the short answer. We can just go through and see what the students put, and then we can give that one a score. So we'll give this student a 4 maybe, and then we can just go to the next student and see it's still filtered to that, and we can give this student a score as well. So this is some of the functionality that's coming out with later this spring. And so I think with that, I'm going to stop sharing.
I'll rattle off some questions for you.
We got some questions?
Yep. So
okay.
Some I can take, some I'm going to pass on to you. So okay. First one, around lockdown browsers.
Okay, so lockdown browser isn't going to be part of that first release, but it will be coming in subsequent releases. I don't have a target date on that, but we're looking at trying to release a lot of the additional functionality throughout the summer.
So SSO program, so if you're using Clever, yep, Clever is supported. That's done through OneRoster. You'll continue to use NC Ed Cloud Rapid Identity, I know, for your SSO, so that is going to remain the same. There was a question about, can teachers create manual courses like a sandbox course to build content and then share that to their sections? So yes, that is a viable option. And so if there was a generic course that was created and we wanted to tie content to that generic course and use that as the mechanism to feed into the library, that certainly is a viable option for that. We got a couple other questions back up here. Canvas quizzes, do you want to talk to QTI support?
Yep, QTI support will be coming. So we have the first we need to get the quizzes updated, and then we'll have the common cartridge updated with the QTI support.
Okay, so that was Mr. M. Canvas quizzes, again, course export, again, right, common cartridge with QTI support. Accessibility features, for example, read aloud in quiz or any assignments pages.
So accessibility features with screen readers and with tabbing, those will all be included on the student side. Read aloud is not something that we have currently.
Okay. Can you put fractions in or geometric figures? You want to talk about equation editors?
The equation editors, we're looking at adding more math options with the quizzes, but we do have some partnership with like Equatio for some equation editor if you have that, or we'll be, like I said, looking to add more functionality with math type questions again over the summer.
And do the numerical question types know equivalent answers?
So
that'd be like a 1 and a 1.0, things like that.
Okay, that I don't have the details on that one.
Okay, we can get back to you on that.
Yeah.
A global IC library. So the library feature that I had shared earlier, that is, it's beyond building, but it's confined to the PSU at the current time. And then I think the only one, and we're caught up, is the parent view settings. At the end, I can certainly jump in and I can show you some of the different options as it comes to curriculum and what information that we're sharing. So I can make a note and I will show that at the end. All right, I'm gonna start sharing go ahead.
Stephen, I just posted one, I'm sorry. That is probably going to be for Catherine. Can you give timed assessments?
So the timer and timed assessments is something that's not going to be part of that first release, but it will be in a subsequent release. So we're looking at adding that again sometime during the summer, most likely.
All right, excellent. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here. So there's two specific things that I want to highlight from here. The first is discussions. And so classroom discussions, threaded discussions, these are things that can be set up inside Infinite Campus. These can be scored, but they don't have to be scored. And so I'm going to use an example of one that I created just to highlight the functionality here. So I created a discussion. You can see the icon here. It's called Small Group Discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open that up. And when I open that up, so when I created this, I gave this discussion a name. Okay, I gave it a brief description, but you're going to notice over here on the right-hand side, there is no grading enabled. And so I want to use this as just an example of if we want to have back and forth communication in a variety of different ways, but there's absolutely no scoring that's taking place, we absolutely can do that. We can turn grading off and we can still take advantage of functionality over on the left-hand side of the screen. And so when I come through and I look at this, and I can show you the student side too, but this is what the teacher would see. The teacher just simply has a threaded discussion on here. And so whether this was students were working in a small group on a particular project, maybe this was a student that just doesn't feel comfortable asking questions in class. And so this is a quick, easy, safe spot for them to ask their questions and get responses from the teachers. So we have all that information here. There's also an administrative view of discussions. So an administrator would be able to come through and see all discussions that are ongoing within their particular building. So that was the first one. If I take this and I jump over to the student view, I'm going to just come back to my particular course. And again, this is the student view. This is the experience that a student would have for that. Okay, so as a student, I can come in, and again, you're going to see a very, very similar experience. And so I'll be able to see those posts. We have the ability to turn on or turn off editing after a post has been made. We can flag posts that we have concerns with, and all that information is going to go back to the teacher. So that's discussions. And then what many of you are probably curious about is how about Google Drive? So how does Google Drive function inside Infinite Campus? And so we'll go through the full life cycle here. So I'm going to start as a teacher, then we're moving over to the student, we'll submit some things, and then we'll come back over to the teacher side. So to start, I'm going to create an assignment. And in this particular case, I'm going to have a really simple assignment. I'm going to call Google Drive assignment for poetry. I've already gone through the summary. I've already gone through adding different kinds of content and discussions, but I'm going to do it again. And in this particular case, I wouldn't have to do this, but I'm going to come through. So I'm going to launch into my Google Drive as a teacher. Okay, so I've already created something that I want to share out to my students. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh, one moment. Hold on one second. I do, in fact, have access to that. Hold on, give me 1 second. All right. Share, sorry, I'm finding my share button here. Okay, so when I clicked on Google Drive, it automatically is going to open up to my Google Drive. And the way that this is going to be organized, I can back up just so you can see that again. So when I click on Google Drive, it's going to launch into my teacher's Google Drive structure. So the way this is going to be organized for teachers, it's going to be based on the particular site. So here I'm in this particular year in this particular school, and I can come in and I'm going to have a folder for each one of my course and sections. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this up. Okay, anything in which I've already created. So I created my assignment for stopping by the woods on a snowy day, or if I was to come out here, I'll just come through this way. If I wanted to come, and if I wanted to come into my folders, okay, so again, this is me, the teacher. I'm signed into my teacher's Google Drive folder. Again, I can come through this particular structure here. And if I wanted to create a new doc, okay, I'm just going to call this poetry assignment. Right, so that thing can just sit out here. There's no issues with that. And so again, as a teacher, when I come out and I'm going through and I'm grabbing my particular assignment, I can just grab that. And that's going to go ahead and that's going to suck that into my particular, oops, should suck it into my particular assignment. Give me 1 second. There it is. Sucks it in. All right, this is the screen that I want. Right-hand side, Google Drive file options. All right, at the very top, what do you want students to be able to do with this? The default is nothing other than look at it. But if you want your students to make a copy of this, have it be stored in their Google Drive structure, you can certainly do that. And that's what I'm going to do in this particular example. I'm going to have them make a copy. And then as far as sharing, you can edit these preferences, but by default, it's just going to be within the same domain. You can make it public, or you can specifically control who you want to share this with. But again, I'm just going to leave it from current domain. So again, that's me as a teacher saying, hey, I have this thing that I have created. It's in my Drive folder. I want to share that out to students, and I want them to be able to come through, and I want them to be able to make copies of that. In addition to that, I want my students to be able to submit something back to me. And so I'm going to enable the submission functionality. And again, when we come through and we enable the submission functionality, we have control over what types of submissions we want to support. I'll just leave the 3 default options that are on here, but we're going to focus on the Google Drive submissions for my students. In addition to that, at the bottom, you have settings. And so by default, this is turned off. But if you want to allow back and forth where the student uploads something and they re-upload it, you can control the number of times that you want them to be able to submit this. And so I want to allow multiple attempts. And how many attempts do you want to limit it to, right? You can make that determination. So this is all on the teacher side. So I created this assignment called Google Drive with my initials, and I'm going to save that. For those of you that are using Google right now, I'm going to stop. I haven't left the student side or the teacher side. Are there any questions just on taking a file that I have as a teacher and uploading it and then enabling submissions from the student side?
Specifically on Google, well, here we go. We've got make a copy for each, doesn't make a copy for each student.
You'll see that in just a moment.
Okay.
The students are going to have to initiate that.
Then it says, lets the teacher view the file the whole time while they're working.
Yes, I'll talk more about that.
Okay, and then does Microsoft OneDrive have the same integration as Google Drive in Infinite Campus?
I'll let you take that.
Yep, that one is, we're actually in conversations with Microsoft right now about that. So hopefully that's something that we're going to have in the future. No timeline or anything at this point. Talks are still really early. And there are a couple of other questions here, but they're not related to Google, so we'll hold off on those maybe.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to switch back over to my student screen. Okay. So I'm logged in now as Dylan, and here's my assignment that I just created, Google Drive SHH. Okay. So this is what the student would see based on those dates. It shows up in my due today folder. As a student, when I come out and I open this up, okay, the first thing that we're going to have here is we're going to have that poetry assignment. This is the drive that, or the file from Drive that came from my teacher. As a student, when I click on that, okay, this is what that preference is going to do on the student side. Okay, do you want to make a copy of this particular file? So the question that came in, does it automatically make a copy? Nope. So this is the student's initiation to create that copy. Okay, so it's going to go ahead, it's going to sign into my Drive. Awesome. Okay, now I can go ahead as the student, I can open this file directly up, or I could certainly open up Drive and get there that way as well. So at this particular point in time, okay, I have taken what the teacher sent to me, I have made a copy, I, the student, am the owner of this particular document. Okay, that's important. So I'm the student, I'm the owner of this. Okay, and so I go through, I type whatever it is that I need to submit back to my student. Okay, and I can go ahead and I can close out of that. All right, so I made a copy, I'm doing my work, and then down at the bottom where I have my student submission, I can go ahead and I can attach that back for the student. So when I come through and I open this up, there's a structure that is built for the students. So the top level is Infinite Campus assignments. So as a student, when I come through, it says, hey, I need to go find my assignments. I'm going to go to my particular site. So based on the year in school, I'm going to open that up. I'm going to come into my class, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to submit. So I have a couple different accounts here. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to submit my particular I might have already done that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just do this for right now. All right, I'm going to hit save. The person that was asking the question about visibility and who owns what. When I hit save, okay, I, the student, am the owner of that particular document. I still have full access to come back in. I can make any modifications to that document that I need to. It's not until the student comes through and hits the turn in which ownership is changed from the student back to the teacher. Okay, so there's two different processes. But at any point in time, once the file has been saved, teachers are going to have visibility into that particular document. It's just that ownership doesn't change hands until the student goes ahead and hits the turn in. Okay. Kathy, I'm going to just stop and see if there's any questions on that. Yeah.
Still nothing new on Google. Oh, here we go. Will Google Drive automatically create the Infinite Campus assignments folder, or is it done manually?
No, the process is going to do that.
The others are like LTI stuff, so we'll get to those maybe after when you're ready for those.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I'll reshare. I grabbed the wrong file, so I'm gonna just reshare that. All right, so I did upload that particular poetry assignment from Dylan, just so you can see all that. And again, I'm gonna save that. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to turn that in again, so I'm going to change the ownership. That's all on the student side. As I come back over to the teacher side, okay, if I come through and I come to the scoring interface, okay, so for the scoring interface, as far as my assignment is concerned, and I'm going to come to the actual grade book so that you can see this. It's just a different screen that many of you may not have seen yet. All right. This is just another way in which we can see that information. And so this is my student, Dylan. Dylan submitted something, so it's going to give me a link that's going to allow me to access the information in which the student has submitted. And so on here, if you take your eyes to the upper right, you're going to see reassign to student. Because the ownership, right, based on that turned in has come to the teacher, if I want the student to make changes to this, I have to reassign it to them to transfer ownership back. Okay, that's an option. Okay, down here, right now, the Google permissions for the student, there you can see they're just view only because ownership has come over to the student. And then again, this is the teacher interface. And so you saw this previously when I had a side-by-side view with that scoring rubric where I was coming through and I was marking those different boxes. This just opens up Google directly inside Infinite Campus, so we can have the same functionality that Google supports, all embedded inside Infinite Campus. I can provide feedback, I can score, and I can move on to my next student. Okay. So if Google is established, that's a pretty seamless process as far as adding documents and uploading documents, leveraging the existing Google Drive functionality. Kathy, any questions on any of that?
I don't think so. There was another one that came in about the sharing, and I think that was covered though as you went through. So.
Okay.
Do you want to go back to talk LTI for a second?
Sure, we can talk LTI
sure.
for a minute.
So there was a question here before I get to that. Is there a LaTeX editor?
LaTeX editor, if whoever wrote that in the chat, if you could clarify, I don't know what LaTeX editor means.
And then there's the regarding LTI, one person asked, can I link directly to an assignment? I'm guessing that that's maybe an LTI question. And then someone asking to show how to assign third-party extension as an assignment, which I think is LTI. LaTeX is an online math equation editor. So the question, is there a LaTeX editor? So
I'm not familiar with that one. I'm familiar with Equatio being a connection. We can follow up on that one.
Yeah,
I haven't heard of that one.
Write it down.
Okay. And then as far as the LTI connections, I can't remember if I hit on this earlier. So again, for any kind of content, whether it's a resource or whether it's an assignment, this learning tool, and again, when I launch into that, whatever those LTI connections are that have been established for your PSU will be able to be brought in, right? So again, it just does a quick, easy launch into whatever that connection is.
So there's another Google related question here. It says in Google Classroom, students can complete the work without turning it in. I saw a cart feature in Infinite Campus. Is this where assignments live between accessing the assignment and it being turned in?
Nope, that's a different piece of functionality out there. But as far as the assignments, so the assignments will always live on the student side, the student portal. They'll always live inside the course and inside the curriculum. And so whether that student has actually submitted something or not, they're going to live in the exact same location. They will have an indicator as to whether they've turned it in or not. But once any kind of a submission, so going back to the Google Drive, once it has been saved, teachers have access to that information. But the teacher is also able to see that it hasn't been officially turned in by the student, and the student is still the owner of it. So.
And then is there an auto-save feature if a student is working on a text editor submission and accidentally closes the tab?
There's not an autosave.
And then there's another question here. I think for me, being able to import common cartridge exports from Canvas and other LMS is not yet a feature, but will be in the next planned release. When is that release expected? So the import of common cartridge is going to be available in I guess a limited sort of release, and so we're working with people to sort of figure out when that's going to be. We do have the import available, but not open to everyone at this time. So that's a little bit of a tricky question. We're going to be working to get some things smoothed out with it first before it's going to be available. So that will be available though by the time people are up and running.
Okay. All right, I'm going to keep going. So as far as curriculum, content is concerned, we talked about teachers being able to create content inside Infinite Campus. We talked about teachers being able to take content and push it to the library so that anyone in the PSU would have access to that information. There were some questions, which I'll address here in just a moment, about can there be a kind of a templated course, almost if you will, created where content can be created there and pushed to lots of different sections at the same time. There were some questions around curriculum director visibility into what's happening at a course. So I want to hit kind of all of those different things right now. So I'm going to actually leave this location and I'm going to come back to my course itself. And when I come to my course, there's a tool related to course, and it's called Course Curriculum. And when I come down here, the Curriculum Planner, what I'm now doing is I'm coming away from an individual section that a teacher is working in, that view that I was just in. I'm leaving that view and I'm coming to a higher level view that is the course. And so if there's 2 sections, if there's 20 sections, I'm going to have visibility into everything that is being taught, lesson plans, units for all of my different teachers for all of the different classes. And it's going to be a calendar-based view. And so when I come through, okay, I happen to be the only teacher. So you can see Stephen Hallman here. I'm the only teacher. I have 2 different sections, section 98 and section 99. Okay. And so being able to come through, I can see for each one of the sections of this particular course, what is being covered today, for this week, going forward, going backwards throughout the calendar. The other thing that exists here, and it's a little drop down that says new. And so whoever the I is that would have access to this course. And again, you can think creatively because this course doesn't even need to have students associated to it. But I have the ability to come through and do the same functionality that you just saw me do, creating folders, resources, assignments, discussions, quizzes, different kinds of submissions with any of the connections as far as Google Drive, quizzes, file uploads, LTI connections, all of that same functionality exists. But being able to come through and being able to create content here and then adding it to all of my different sections. And so if you had a PLC that got together and was standardizing curriculum and we just wanted to create it once and then it just magically appeared in all of our teachers' curriculum, this would be a way in which you could do this. So it not only provides visibility, but it's also a way in which curriculum can be created for all sections of the given course, regardless of who the teachers are. So I wanted to show that first. If I take the same view, we also provide this view for our teachers. And so when I come through, and I'll just kind of come back here to my curriculum area, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a calendar-based view here. So as a teacher, I also have my calendar-based view for curriculum. This is a drag and drop interface. And so if I need to change pacing or anything like that, I can certainly say, oh, you know what? I didn't do that this day. I did it on this particular day. Oops, I did it on this particular day. And so I can come through and I can, oh, that's my third-party assignment. I can come through, I can't move that one because that is not my system of record. I can extend due dates. I can move the assignment. I can change weeks. Whatever it is that I need to do, I can do from a drag and drop interface. I can create content from here. That's the drop downs that we have up here. I can search for content in the library, and it just changed this over to a calendar-based view. But the other thing, and the real reason that I wanted to come here, is the tab up here at the top called Other Curriculum. Because what this allows us to do is I'm one teacher that's teaching this particular class, but maybe I'm a new teacher and maybe I want to compare myself to someone else. Maybe I have a mentor teacher. So what this allows me, the teacher, to do is come out and I can search based on a particular school, based on a particular course. Don't have to, but I can certainly based on a particular teacher, and I can go ahead and I can search. And this allows me to compare myself to one or multiple people. And when I come through and I come out here, I can go ahead and I can save that. And what you're going to see on this particular screen, it's kind of hard to see down here at the bottom, but I have the ability to look at what content I'm delivering this week and compare it to one of my peers. I have the ability to look at that person's information. I can't change it, obviously, but I have visibility in. I also could go to that other teacher's curriculum. I could look at what their content is. And if there was a particular thing that I thought would be relevant for the students in my class, I can go ahead and I could certainly copy that structure of curriculum from their curriculum into mine. Now, one thing that everyone should be aware of is there are settings here. And so as an individual teacher, you do have the ability to come through and you can control if you want your curriculum on a teacher by teacher basis to be visible to other users or not. So there is a control mechanism there. But this is a nice piece that allows collaboration between teachers without necessarily having to go out to the library. Any questions on any of that?
We have one clarification here. What is the difference between submissions and assignments?
A submission is anything in which we want the student to interact with. And so a submission would be either a text-based editor. The student is logging into the portal and typing something back to me that I have access to in Infinite Campus. They either have something saved on their desktop, on a flash drive, wherever it is, and they're uploading that for me, the teacher, to download, or they're grabbing a Google Drive file that they have and submitting that back. That is what a submission is. The definition of an assignment, you can think in terms of a simple Excel spreadsheet that we're using as a gradebook. An assignment is going to be a column in that gradebook in which we're expecting a student score, points earned out of points possible.
Will students receive an email notification like they do with other LMSs?
Sure. So Message Center is an area here in which there are three core types of messages. There's a general class message. Hey, we're going on a field trip on Friday. Make sure you have warm clothes and pack a lunch. There's a grades message and a missing assignments message as well. The grades message can be used for both accolades as well as low grades, can be based on posted grades or grades that are in progress, and same thing for missing assignments.
Can you make it visible to specific teachers? I think this is from the planner that you're just looking at.
So from the planner, the teacher, each individual teacher has the ability to say, I want my course in section to be visible to other people to find or not. But if you put information into the library, that information is going to be accessible for everyone.
And then unrelated to this webinar, it says, are any future webinars planned specifically for data managers and counselors regarding scheduling?
Yes. There'll be trainings with each of one of the PSUs. So yes. Okay, I'm going to come back and I'll come back over to my curriculum, and I'm going to come to this assignment that I did at the very beginning. That was the North Carolina assignment, and this was an example of something that came in from a third-party LMS. Okay, and so that's an important piece to understand. I didn't create this assignment in Infinite Campus. I didn't score it in Infinite Campus. This all came from a third party. However, when I come out and I look at this, right, I can go through, I can see a row for each one of my students. Okay, I can see that North Carolina assignment 1 at the very top, and I can see it was worth 100 points. So again, this information was fed in from that third party. However, once we have data that resides in Infinite Campus, regardless of where the assignment and score came from, one of the nice features up here is this little graph. And so I can run this for multiple assignments at the same time. I'm just targeting one particular assignment right now. And so being able to come through, this will do a distribution up at the very top. And so because at least in your high schools, you're using a numeric 10-point system, 0 to 100, that's what this will be based upon. And so it allows us to come through, and I can look at the percentage of the students in my class that received a particular score and how many students that was. So in this case, 3 students received a 50, or 21% of my class received a 50, right? You can read it either direction. I can go ahead and I can select that particular cell. When I select that cell, it'll give me a distinct list of students that meet that criteria. And I can kind of bounce throughout this and I can see how my students performed. But I also have the ability to come through and I can control click and I can multi-select different groupings of students. This is a great way in which if you need to provide reteaching for a student, being able to come through, I can certainly throw this to a CSV, but I want to create a dynamic student group. So being able to come through, and I'm just going to call this North Carolina Reteaching Opportunity. So I can take the students that didn't perform as well as I wanted them to. I can create a student group. And then what this allows me to do, if I was coming through and I wanted to create a new assignment, I create my reteaching opportunity. Over here, I target what students I want that to be limited to. So it's a neat way in which, again, we don't care where the assignments and the scores came from, but once they exist inside Infinite Campus, that certainly is a nice feature that I want to make sure everyone saw.
Question came in from the planner. Can teachers copy content only from their school, or can it be at district or cross school level?
Cross school level, yes. Within the district, but across schools, we're good on. Okay. Anything else on that?
No.
All right, we'll come back. I have a couple of kind of miscellaneous things that I think are important to highlight, but we're going to change gears. This has all been focused on kind of the traditional grading model. That's what I've been focused on. But certainly with a big push towards standards-based grading, what we're going to do is we're going to change gears, and I'm going to come over to my second period class, which happens to be Math 4. Now, if you remember at the very beginning, Math 4 still exists. I have teachers assigned, I have students associated, and I have some grading that is configured. But the grading that I have configured isn't what you've been seeing. This supports, and what I want to show you is it's a support for standards or proficiency-based grading. So I can go ahead and I can load this up. And at the very top, I'm going to come over to this area that's called grades. And on your left-hand side, let me just move that out of the way. On my left-hand side, I have 2 different areas. I have a grade book and I have a progress monitor. The progress monitor was initially developed as a standards-based grade book, but it has evolved in robustness and it really supports any style grading that you can fathom doing. This particular tool will support it. We'll keep it easy for this demonstration as far as kind of what's at the core of this. So lots of stuff going on the screen. So pause those eyes for a second and just come right down here. We have a row for each one of our students. You'll see their smiling faces. Okay, so a row for each one of our students. And then you come over here on the right-hand side and we have a column. And that column represents whatever the standards, and I use that term loosely, standard skills, competencies, domains, benchmarks, whatever it is that you're assessing students against, we're going to have a column for that. I can hover over, I can see the details about that. And then when this was designed, the initial problem that we were looking to solve is, as a teacher, I just need a simple view where I can come in, I can see all of my students, all of the content in which we're expecting them to demonstrate mastery on, and see where they're currently at. What is their current progress? Okay? And then we have a binary set of colors we can turn on or we can turn off. Green means they're at where we expect them to be. Pink means they're not quite there yet. Okay. Within each one of those cells, there's 2 numbers in the upper right-hand corner. So that second number, or the out of number, is the number of times that that particular standard has been assessed for that particular student. And the numerator, or that first number, represents the number of times that student has been scored. So what you're seeing right now is for each one of my students, they've been assessed 1 time. And I'm using a scoring system here of above, at, below. I could have written those words out. I just shortened them. If you wanted advanced, proficient, basic, 4, 3, 2, 1, ESNU, right? Whatever your scoring systems are that you would use, or they can vary by different standard, all of that is just fine. All right. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create an assignment because there's a couple things that are a little bit different in this particular model. So the initial screen is laid out exactly the same. And so I'm just going to call this assignment 2. And as far as data on the left-hand side, we've already covered that. No need for me to go through that. But I am going to come over here on the right side and I'm going to come down and you're going to see this area down here which talks about how we're going to score that particular assignment or that particular assessment. And so I've created a category. And if you remember back, those are things like formative, summative, quizzes, tests. I just have a category in here called progress monitoring. And I can come through and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say the assessment that I'm giving these students is going to cover this standard. And you're going to notice that it defaults over to a scoring type of rubrics, which is not points earned out of points possible. Okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, you know what? It's also assessing another standard. So we can have an assessment that covers multiple different statements. And so it's also assessing students on this particular statement. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that. When I close out of this, the first thing that you're going to notice is back on that initial grid, those first 2 columns now have an out of 2 because there's been 2 assessments for those particular standards. Once I come through, if I was to come back and if I was to go to my, I'll just come to my scoring interface so you can see this. So lots of different ways in which I can use this. If I just wanted a big Excel spreadsheet, I can certainly have a big interactive Excel spreadsheet. If I want to filter it down to a particular assignment, I can certainly filter it down to a particular assignment. So what I just created, I'm assessing students against 2 different skills. And if I come through this, I can go ahead and I have some ways to fill this down, but I could say every student was at a score of an at. I can fill all my students, just those students that are here today. Okay. I can do an above, I can change. This is going to be dynamic as far as what we have. If I wanted to put scores of below in, it'll dynamically change the student coloration on this particular screen. And so being able to come through, this is an interactive progress monitoring. It works great on a tablet if you were to walk around a classroom with this, but this is the progress monitoring tool. As a teacher, I have the ability to come in, I can create my own custom filters. And so if I had a lot of standards that I was working on, I can create a targeted grid that is just the particular standards that I'm focused on right now. I can save those. I can have a progression of standards and I'm just working on these things. So lots of ways that I can customize this particular grid, but this is our standards-based gradebook. From within here, there's a couple additional things that I'll just call your attention to because I think they're great. So clicking on a student's name provides the teacher lots of different information that we would have. Student schedule, grade summary, attendance summary. So it's a nice way that we can get at that information. And then for each individual student that is on here, there is a set of assignments. So if you want to focus or have a targeted view or conversation about a particular student, I can certainly come in and I can see just those assignments. Again, I can do any of my scoring that I need to directly from this screen, and I can save that. I'll come back to portfolio in just a second. We were having a conference. This is a nice way in which I could come through. I can get a student-specific view, hide all my others, and just target a particular student. And last but not least is something that is called the portfolio. And the portfolio is a tool that exists, or can exist, I should say, for both teachers and for administrators, counselors, just school level staff. I'll start from the perspective of a teacher. If I was to come in here, what this is going to do is this is going to provide a summary screen, which is completely customizable by the end user. And so it defaults to a particular course in which we entered. So this happens to be Math 4. From within here, I'll see all of the standards that have been associated to this course, what the student's proficiency is. I can drill in. I can see any of the details and the assignment scores that sit behind that particular value, right? This is all drag and drop. So depending on how I want this to be, I can certainly group it in a variety of different ways. I can take filters off. I can add additional filters on. I can look for, right, I'm 5th grade math and I want to look at a full history of the K through 4 math standards. I can look for students that have not demonstrated proficiency on any of the math standards. I can save all of those. So it's some really neat functionality that allows us to really target on the standards or the skills that students are working towards. So that's from the teacher side. This also exists if I was to come back out to a student, and this is all going to be based on permissions in the system, but again, I think this is important to highlight. If I come out here, each one of our students also has something that is called the standards portfolio. And it's the same view. Again, it allows us to come out and I can see all of the standards that have been covered for an individual student. Point here, I just want you to be able to see the data structure that we have. And each one of those rows can be drilled into, there's reports that are available on this. But this is our standards-based grading. Lots more functionality, but I wanted to make sure that I hit that piece. Any questions on any of the standard stuff?
Yeah, a couple of questions on standards. With Progress Monitor, can you change it from above, at, below to a numeric system?
Yep, you do any scores that you want. Yep.
How are standards imported? Will North Carolina standards already be imported? Is that based on PSU?
So I am working with DPI right now on that, but there will be a standard set of standards that are loaded for each PSU.
And then we'll see if more come in on standards, but a couple that came in from the last in between here, asking about this one says, does it show demographic breakdown in scoring groups?
So you can certainly run analysis against different kinds of subgroups, whether that's age, sex, race, things like that. We have a reporting tool that'll allow for a breakdown if that's what that question is around.
Regarding student groups, can you easily change a student from one group to another?
Yep.
And then are students notified via message or email when new assignments are posted in Infinite Campus by teacher? And likewise, are teachers notified when assignments are completed or submitted and ready for grading?
So I'll show both those. I'm going to hit the student groups one real quick first. So as far as student groups are concerned, so that particular question, just so I don't just say yes and not show you anything. So I can come in here, I can create a new student group, and then this is how students are either added or removed. Okay, otherwise based on that, very quick, very easy. The next piece ties nicely to some of the, we have about 6 minutes left, ties nicely to kind of some of the last pieces that I want to hit. So as a teacher, when I log in back on that teaching center, kind of my home base, so again, we have a card for each one of our periods with whatever course or courses are occurring in there. And then that second little area at the bottom here. So if there's any new work that a student has completed, that's where we're going to see that. So I can come ahead, I can come in here and I can go ahead and I can open that up. And this is going to show me again, if I come back to that assignment that I was looking at. So there's a breakdown of 3 different numbers on the right-hand side. So the middle number, the number that are assigned, that means it's outstanding. Students haven't done anything for me. If I had something in here that was 112.0, right, one of my students turned it in, but I have action that I need to take. So that's a quick view there as far as work that hasn't been scored. On the student side, it's really that home screen when they log in, and they'll be able to see assignments that are due today, assignments that are upcoming. So that's how the students are going to see that. And then the last 2 pieces that I wanted to hit, and then we'll open it up for any questions here at the end, are these last 2 items here. There's a hand raise, and then there's a smiley face. And so that hand raise, I'm going to switch over to the student side. So when the student logs into Infinite Campus, okay, they'll have each one of their different courses. And if you just focus on these 2 here, my English 3 and my English 11, okay, there's something that has been happening with respect to questions, okay? Now look at concert choir. There's a blank hand raise, okay, or a white one. That means that this course is open where I can ask a question to my teacher, but I don't have any unanswered questions. So I could come out, I could raise my hand. I can do this, it'll turn orange. I have an outstanding question. Anything that has been answered by the teacher is going to show up with this screen. I can see the teacher's response. And if I'm all good, I can resolve it. It'll turn that hand back to white, so I can ask another question. You can have one question outstanding. And so that is, again, another visual indicator for the teacher when they log in, if they have outstanding questions. And again, this would be the teacher view too. I don't know why you would dismiss that, but you can go ahead and you can reply back. That'll turn it to green. And then the last piece, which I think is outstanding, this was developed kind of out of COVID, and it deals with SEL. So it's not SEL curriculum, but it is a nice way in which we can engage our students in answering specific questions. And so in this particular example that I have here, I've created something that's called a weekly connection for this particular week. And when I open this up, let me hit edit here. It's that same look and feel that you have seen on all the other screens. So I can have start and end dates. Okay, so that's when this thing is going to be available. And as I come down through, there are pre-built by Infinite Campus questions in here. So I have different categories as far as well-being, classroom-related topics, curriculum-related topics. And then once I select a question, I have an option to ask follow-up questions. Okay, so it's a really nice way at all grade levels to be able to engage our students in making a connection. Now, once I have one of these that have been created, if I come back over to the student side, where that appears is right here in my check-ins. As a student, I have the ability to come through, and this is going to be what that looks like. How do you feel in class? Feel great? Don't. One of the other pieces that's really cool about this is we can connect this directly to curriculum. How do you think you're going to do? How do you think you did? Do you like this style of learning? And you can connect it to particular assignments. And so I can go ahead and I can submit that. Once I submit that, it's off my to-do. There's no more additional check-ins that I need to do. It goes away from here. Back on the teacher side, when I come through, I think this is a nice piece. I just have 2 that are connected here, so I'll just show you this. So there's going to be a summary and a detailed view for each one of these. So being able to come through, I can look at the response summary based on the questions. And then from any one of these, I can drill in and I can see the particular details that sit behind those. So I like to show that. I think it's very powerful as we talk about making connections with kids. It's more than just submitting assignments and scoring that. So I think this is a neat piece that I wanted to make sure that you saw. All right, Kathy, we're right at 11.
Right at 11, but we just
Okay.
have a couple quick ones.
Okay.
Can a student be in more than one group at a time in the same class?
Yes.
Okay. Can admin or coaches make student groups of students who are not assigned to a class?
No. Yes, through ad hoc filters, it's outside of this, but we can create what a football team, student council, 11th grade, juniors or juniors that are males or whatever.
And then can a teacher send messages to parents or students who are missing a specific assignment or if their grade is below a certain point?
Yes.
Those are the questions.
Okay. All right. Rebecca, anything else outstanding?
I don't believe so. I think all questions got answered and we are right at 12 o'clock. That's amazing.
Quick. The only other thing I'll just rattle off real quick, take 10 seconds. So one of the things that does exist I focused on individual sections, but if you're a middle school or a high school teacher and you teach multiple sections of the same course over and over, there is a way. We have something called section groups, and so you can consolidate. So if I had 5 sections of Math 7, right, all me, I can create one single grade book. And so I can look at all of my students, all of their assignments. I can run that same analysis against 150 kids as opposed to just 30 kids in one section. So there's a way that you can combine grade books. That would be the last thing.
Awesome. All right, well, we will be having the third and final installment of this. It is a repeat session, so I know some people had asked before if it's new material, it's the same presentation, but that's going to be at 3 o'clock today for anyone that was unable to make the first two. So make sure to share that invite with anybody that can make the 3 o'clock. But we thank you all for taking time out of your morning to be with us to learn about Infinite Campus and their LMS. And just as a reminder, we will be sending out a recording, so don't fear, we will be posting that for everyone to be able to reference. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your morning.
Thank you, everyone.